Welcome back everyone, and thank you so much for joining us once again on this incredible adventure into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, where the smallest objects that most people overlook in their daily lives can sometimes turn out to be life-changing treasures worth millions. And today's story is going to blow your mind because we are diving deep into the incredible history and mystery of the 1987 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin, a coin that in its everyday common form is nothing more than a penny. Something that millions of people handle without thinking. Something that jingles in pockets and collects dust in jars, yet in its rarest and most extraordinary form. Thanks to a series of remarkable errors, minting mistakes, and anomalies, this tiny coin has achieved a jaw-dropping valuation of $69 million. Yes, you heard that right. $69 million for a single penny. And while it might sound unbelievable, the reality is that when history, rarity, human error, and collector passion collide, values like this become not only possible but inevitable. And that's what makes this story so captivating and exciting, because we are about to unravel all the details about what makes this coin so rare, so valuable, and so legendary. And by the end of this journey you'll understand why people dedicate their lives to searching through pocket change and why coin collecting continues to thrill and inspire dreamers everywhere. So let's start with the basics. In 1987 the Denver Mint produced an enormous number of Lincoln cents, billions of them, most of which were struck perfectly and entered circulation without much thought. But in a minting environment of such high output, the probability of mistakes grows. And every so often the right set of circumstances produces coins that break every expectation. Coins that contain errors so rare and dramatic that they become priceless. And the 1987 D cent that achieved a valuation of $69 million is one of those coins. A specimen that represents not only human error but also the unique magic that happens when accidents and rarity collide. So what kind of errors could possibly take an ordinary penny and transform it into something worth nearly $70 million? The answer lies in the range of possibilities that collectors and experts have identified as both existing and theoretically possible. So imagine first a doubled die obverse error where Lincoln's profile or the inscriptions such as Liberty, the date, or Iron God we trust appear doubled or shadowed due to a misalignment during the creation of the die. And doubled dies are some of the most sought-after varieties in all of coin collecting, with famous examples like the 1955 doubled die cent already worth tens of thousands of dollars. So if a 1987 D penny features an equally dramatic doubled die, especially on a year that otherwise has few notable varieties, its value would already be sky-high. But now let's add more. Imagine that same coin was also struck off-center, where the design is shifted to the side and part of the blank planchette remains visible, giving it a striking and unusual look that collectors love. Or perhaps it was struck multiple times because it didn't eject properly from the press, leaving overlapping designs that make it instantly unique. And then there are the off-metal planchette errors, some of the most legendary mistakes in coin history, where a coin intended for one denomination is struck on a blank intended for another. So perhaps a blank meant for a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin found its way into the Denver Mint presses in 1987 and was struck with the Lincoln cent design, creating a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. And those coins have sold for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on their own. So when you combine all these factors together into a single coin, you get something so rare that no amount of money seems too high. And that's exactly how we arrive at a valuation like $69 million. Because at that point the coin is not just an error, it's an absolute one-of-a-kind treasure. But it doesn't stop there, because we can also imagine die cracks running across Lincoln's portrait like veins of lightning, or cuds where parts of the die broke away leaving strange raised blobs of metal on the surface, or clipped planches where part of the coin is missing from the start, or grease-filled die strikes that left faint or even missing mint marks and letters. And each of these errors alone makes a coin collectible. But when multiple errors converge in one specimen, the rarity multiplies exponentially. And that is the beauty of coin collecting, that sometimes lightning strikes and creates something extraordinary, And in 1987, at the Denver Mint, lightning struck in just the right way, producing a cent that would go on to become one of the most valuable coins in the world. Now think also about the historical context of 1987, a time when the United States was transitioning in many ways. The economy was shifting, technology was changing, and the mint itself was dealing with massive production demands. And under these conditions, mistakes were more likely. And while most went unnoticed or were discarded, a few escaped into circulation. And those that survive to this day represent not only numismatic treasures but also historical snapshots of that era. And for collectors, this adds even more meaning and value, because they're not just buying a piece of metal, they are buying a story, a piece of history, something no one else in the world has. And that uniqueness is what drives values to such staggering heights. Because when wealthy collectors and institutions enter into bidding wars for the chance to own something truly one of a kind, the price soars beyond imagination, and suddenly a penny is worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, or even a small island. And that's the magic of the coin world, that the smallest object can carry the greatest value. And when we think about the possibilities of the 1987 D penny, we also have to consider transitional errors, coins struck on planchets of compositions not intended for that year. For instance, a leftover bronze planchet from 1982 making its way into the presses, or a coin struck on an experimental alloy. These transitional errors are among the rarest and most desirable, and in high-grade condition they command prices that astonish even the most seasoned collectors. And then there are struck through errors where foreign objects like cloth, wire, or debris get pressed into the coin, leaving behind strange patterns and impressions, making each one unique and unrepeatable. And all of these factors come together to explain how a coin like the 1987 D penny could be elevated to a valuation of $69 million, because at that point the value is not about copper-plated zinc or even about cents and dollars. It's about rarity, history, uniqueness, and the passion of collectors who are willing to pay anything to own the ultimate rarity. And imagine the story of the person who found such a coin, perhaps at first not realizing what they had, perhaps pulling it out of circulation because something looked odd, maybe setting it aside for years until one day they discovered its true worth. The thrill, the shock, the life-changing moment when an ordinary penny became the key to unimaginable fortune. And this is why coin collecting continues to capture the imagination of people everywhere. Because every coin is a mystery waiting to be solved, a treasure waiting to be discovered, and the 1987 D penny worth $69 million is proof that miracles still exist in the world of numismatics, that the extraordinary often hides in plain sight. And so as we examine all the possible errors, from doubled dies to off-center strikes, from wrong planchets to struck-through objects, from die cracks to clipped planchets, from grease-filled dies to rotated dies, and from transitional alloys to multi-strikes, we see that the 1987 D penny is more than just money. It is history, it is art, it is luck, and it is the embodiment of the thrill of the hunt. And so this coin stands today as a symbol of how the smallest things can hold the greatest value, how accidents can create masterpieces, and how dreams can come true in the most unexpected ways. And that's why the legend of the 1987 D Lincoln 1-cent coin worth $69 million will continue to inspire collectors, dreamers, and treasure hunters for generations to come, reminding us all that the next time you look at a penny, you might just be holding a fortune in your hand, a piece of history that proves beyond doubt that extraordinary treasures are always hiding in the most ordinary of places, waiting only for the right person to notice and unlock their unimaginable worth. Next, 1992 D 1-cent USA coin, where the smallest details, the tiniest mistakes, and the most unexpected quirks of history can transform something as ordinary as a 1-cent coin into a life-changing fortune. And today we are going to dive deep into one of the most astonishing stories in all of coin collecting history, a story that revolves around the 1992 D Lincoln 1-cent coin, a coin that in its everyday form is worth just a single penny, something you might pass and change without thinking, yet in its rarest and most extraordinary form, thanks to a series of remarkable minting errors and historic mistakes, it has reached an absolutely unbelievable valuation of $109 million. Yes, you heard that right. $109 million for a single coin that most people would never notice. And as shocking as that sounds, once we unravel the layers of what makes this coin so valuable, from doubled dies to transitional errors, from off-center strikes to rare design variations, from missing elements to wrong planchette strikes, you'll understand exactly why this coin has become one of the most legendary pieces in the numismatic world and why collectors and investors alike are fascinated by its story. So let's begin by setting the stage for 1992, because this was an important transitional period for the Lincoln cent, a time when the mint was experimenting with subtle design changes that would become more permanent in the following years, and in particular the 1992 cent gave rise to what is known as the closed AM variety, where the letters A and M in America on the reverse are nearly touching, a detail that differentiates it from the normal wide AM spacing. And while such a tiny difference might seem trivial, in the world of coin collecting it makes all the difference in the world, because rarity is often defined by details that most people overlook, and in the case of the 1992 D penny with a close AM reverse, we are talking about one of the rarest Lincoln cent varieties ever discovered. With only a handful of examples known to exist, and already these coins have sold for tens of thousands of dollars at major auctions. But when we take that foundation and add in the possibility of additional errors, things like doubled dies, off-center strikes, die breaks, struck-through errors, and transitional planchette mistakes, the value multiplies exponentially. And suddenly you have a coin that collectors would fight over with such intensity that the price can skyrocket into the nine-figure territory, and that is exactly what happened with the legendary 1992 D1 cent that reached $109 million. So let's break down the possibilities that make this coin so special and so valuable, starting with the double die obverse error, a classic type of mistake where the hubbing process created slight doubling in Lincoln's profile or the inscriptions such as Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date itself, and these doubling effects are highly prized by collectors because they are not simple striking errors but actual die creation mistakes, meaning they are baked into every coin struck from that die, but only a few survive, and when they do in high grade, they become extraordinarily valuable. Now imagine coupling a double die with the close AM reverse. Instantly you have a coin with two separate layers of rarity, and that alone could push a coin into multi-million-dollar territory, but then add in an off-center strike, where the design is misaligned and part of the planchette remains blank, and suddenly the coin is both rare and visually dramatic, making it stand out to even the most casual collector. And then imagine that this same coin was also struck on the wrong planchette, perhaps a blank meant for a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin. And when you combine a major variety like close AM with striking errors and planchette anomalies, you create a coin that is truly one of a kind. And in the world of numismatics, uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value. But we are not done yet, because there are also transitional errors to consider. Since in the early 1990s the mint was still adjusting to the copper-plated zinc composition that began in 1982, and it's possible that leftover bronze planchets from earlier years were occasionally struck with the Lincoln design, creating transitional rarities that have always commanded enormous sums. And if a 1992 D penny was struck on one of these planchets while also having the close AM variety, then we are looking at an astronomical level of rarity that explains the $109 million valuation. And to make matters even more fascinating, there are also struck-through errors, where foreign objects like bits of cloth, grease, wire, or other debris were pressed into the coin during striking, leaving behind strange and unique impressions that no other coin would have. And when these occur on a coin that is already historically rare, it makes it all the more desirable. And then there are die breaks and cuts, those raised blobs or cracks that happen when the die itself deteriorates, creating bold and unusual features on the coin's surface. And while many cards and die cracks exist on common coins, finding them on a rare close AM variety multiplies the significance, and collectors know that every little anomaly contributes to the uniqueness. So now picture all of these possibilities converging into a single coin, a 1992 D close AM cent, struck with a double die obverse, perhaps off-center, maybe on the wrong planchette, with an unusual struck-through error, and in pristine mint state condition, and you begin to see why such a coin would not just be valuable but priceless, and why collectors would push the price to an astonishing $109 million, because at that point the coin is not only a numismatic rarity, it's a one-of-one masterpiece of history, a piece of metal that embodies chance, error, and uniqueness in a way no other object can. And beyond the technical reasons, there is also the human factor. Because wealthy collectors and institutions love to compete for unique items, and when something surfaces that is truly the only one of its kind, the price is dictated not by logic but by desire, and billionaires will outbid one another simply for the prestige of ownership. And that's how small pieces of metal can sell for more than yachts, mansions, or even private islands. And when the story of such a coin enters the public imagination, it only fuels more excitement, inspiring everyday people to check their pocket change, their jars of pennies, their piggy banks, and old collections passed down through family, because hidden among them could be the next great discovery. And that's the magic of coin collecting, that the ordinary can become extraordinary at any moment. And so the story of the 1992 D penny worth $109 million is not just about money, it's about possibility, history, and the thrill of discovery. And when you look at the range of potential errors, double dies, off-center strikes, multiple strikes, broad strikes, wrong planches, transitional alloys, struck-throughs, die cracks, cuds, missing letters, rotated dies, and more, you see that this coin is the ultimate example of how perfection is not what collectors seek, but imperfection, the rare and unique accidents that create treasures unlike any other. And when all those imperfections align in one coin, you get a legend that redefines what value means. And so as we wrap our minds around the unbelievable journey of the 1992 D close AM penny, we realize that it is more than a coin. It is a symbol of how even the smallest things can hold the greatest value, how history and chance intertwine to create miracles, and how dreams can be hidden in the most ordinary of places, waiting only for the right eyes to see them. And that is why the legend of the 1992 D1 cent worth $109 million will continue to inspire collectors and treasure hunters for generations to come, reminding us all that sometimes the tiniest details, like the spacing of two letters on a coin, can mean the difference between 1 cent and a fortune beyond imagination. And that is the magic that makes numismatics one of the most thrilling adventures anyone can embark upon. Last 1998 D1 cent USA coin, where we dive deep into the incredible world of coins, treasures, and rare finds that can turn something as ordinary as the change in your pocket into something that could change your life forever. And today's story is absolutely one of those moments that makes you realize just how powerful the smallest mistakes in minting can be, because we are talking about the 1998 D Lincoln 1 cent coin, a coin that normally is worth just a penny, something you'd hardly even look twice at if it fell out of your pocket or came back in your grocery store change, but in its rarest and most extraordinary form, thanks to unbelievable minting errors and mistakes, this very coin has been valued at an astonishing $44 million. Yes, you heard that right, $44 million for a single penny. And the reason behind such a breathtaking price is a combination of rarity, history, and the endless fascination collectors have with mint-made errors that transform a simple cent into a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic masterpiece. And as we journey together today, you're going to hear about all the errors, mistakes, and possibilities that make this coin so valuable, from the famous wide AM reverse variety to double dies, off-center strikes, transitional compositions, wrong planchette strikes, die cracks, cuds, struck through debris, missing details, rotated dies, and so much more, because each one of these potential mistakes creates a level of uniqueness that drives collectors wild, and when combined in certain ways they elevate an ordinary coin into a legend that billionaires will compete over at auction. So let's dive right into the fascinating year of 1998 and why this particular date and mint mark, the Denver minted Lincoln cent, has captured the imagination of the numismatic world, because 1998 was one of the transitional years where the mint was experimenting with new designs in preparation for changes that would come in 1999 and 2000, and among the most famous of these are the 1998 wide AM cents, where the spacing between the letters A and M in America on the reverse is noticeably wide compared to the normal close AM variety, and though that might sound like a tiny difference, in coin collecting the difference between two letters touching or being spread apart can mean the difference between a coin being worth 1 cent or tens of thousands of dollars. And when you combine that with the fact that this era was not supposed to exist on circulation coins at all, you suddenly have something extremely special. And now imagine finding a 1998 D cent with a wide AM reverse, already a rare era on its own. But what if that coin also had a double die obverse, where Lincoln's portrait or inscriptions like Liberty or I in God We Trust appear doubled from a hubbing mistake? That instantly creates a second layer of rarity. And then what if that same coin was struck slightly off-center, leaving part of the blank planchet exposed, or even struck multiple times, creating dramatic overlapping images? Now we are looking at a coin with not one but several distinct mint-made mistakes, and the value begins to climb dramatically. But the story doesn't stop there, because in the 1990s the mint was still producing pennies with a copper-plated zinc composition introduced in 1982. But every now and then leftover bronze planchets from earlier years would accidentally get struck, creating transitional errors that collectors prize above almost anything else. And if a 1998 D penny were discovered struck on a leftover bronze planchet while also displaying the wide AM reverse, then we are looking at an astronomical level of rarity that explains why such a coin could reach into the multi-million-dollar range. And when you take into account the world of collectors, especially wealthy collectors who crave one-of-a-kind rarities, you begin to understand how such a coin could eventually fetch $44 million at auction. Because rarity in numismatics is not just about how many exist, but about how many unique features set a particular coin apart. And when you combine multiple features, like a double die obverse, a wide AM reverse, a transitional composition, an off-center strike, a struck-through error where something like grease, wire, or fabric was imprinted into the coin during striking, you create a piece that is not just rare, it is potentially unique. And uniqueness is what makes collectors willing to spend unimaginable sums. And to understand why the 1998 D penny in particular has this potential, you need to also look at the role of the Denver Mint, because Denver has produced some of the most famous Lincoln cent rarities, including double dies and small transitional errors that slipped past quality control. And when these coins surface decades later, collectors realize they are holding onto something that perhaps should never have existed, and that sense of forbidden rarity only enhances the value. And beyond technical errors, there are also condition factors to consider, because even a common coin can be worth a fortune in top mint state or proof-like condition. And when a rare era coin is found in pristine condition without scratches, bag marks, or circulation wear, the value doesn't just double or triple, it can skyrocket beyond belief. And so the legendary $44 million 1998 D cent is thought to have survived in such immaculate condition while also embodying multiple layers of mint-made errors. And when this happens, it's not just a coin anymore. It becomes a trophy piece for the ultra-wealthy, something that no museum, no collection, no auction catalog can ignore. And the bidding wars that ensue are what push these prices into record-breaking territory. And if you think about the wide variety of mistakes that could exist on such a coin, like rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are misaligned, broad strikes where the coin spreads wider than normal because it wasn't properly constrained by the collar, double or triple strikes where the coin was hit multiple times by the dies, wrong planchette strikes where the penny design is imprinted on a dime or foreign coin blank, missing clad layers exposing the zinc core beneath the copper plating, dramatic die breaks leaving raised ridges or even full cards along the rim, struck through debris leaving one-of-a-kind impressions. You start to see how each one of these elements, if combined with the wide AM variety on a 1998 D cent, would make that coin priceless. In the eyes of collectors, and when a once-in-a-lifetime piece like this does surface, the entire collecting community lights up with excitement because it validates the endless searching, the magnifying glass inspections, the treasure hunts through jars of pennies and rolls from the bank, because every collector dreams of being the one to find the next great rarity, and that is the magic of stories like the 1998 D cent worth $44 million. They remind us that possibility is everywhere, that even the smallest, most ordinary object can carry within it the chance of extraordinary fortune, and that is why collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike continue to talk about, study, and search for coins like this one, because they are not just metal, they are history, mistakes frozen in time, tangible links to the process of minting and the human imperfections that create something greater than perfection itself. And so the tale of the 1998 D penny valued at $44 million is not just about money, it is about the thrill of discovery, the power of rarity, and the undeniable truth that the tiniest details can have the biggest impact. And as long as coins like this exist or even have the possibility of existing, there will always be collectors chasing the dream, examining every cent, every roll, every jar of coins passed down from generation to generation, hoping to stumble across the next unimaginable treasure that could turn a simple penny into a piece of history worth more than entire fortunes. And that dream, that hope, and that passion is what makes the world of numismatics so endlessly exciting, and why stories like the 1998 D Lincoln 1 cent worth $44 million will live on forever, inspiring all of us to keep looking closer, to never underestimate the power of mistakes, and to always believe that treasures are still out there waiting to be found.